You don't need to chat shit.
I'm here now.
What good is that? Really? I mean, it's too late now, isn't it? He's gone. I've been driving
Where's Kate
all
for gone
night.
cabinet?
I've got to get my head down. I can't
Is
do
it Yao
this
broke
now.
her leg? She needs Colin.
I'm not giving it my
Well, you better get up there, Han.
I haven't seen you for 15 years.
But I'll wait with her. Can you call Naka, man?
When did you start coming up with the idea for this?
Well, it's inspired by a novel by Rose Tremaine called Trespass, which is about two sets of adult siblings. And I was really interested in the novel. They're called Audrey and Aramon, it was them really who captured me, and their difficult relationship and the way that they've both had to deal with sexual abuse within the family and how it's damaged their relationship and how they've found very different ways of dealing with that.
So how did you first come to get involved in this?
Clio, I was talking to Clio about something else, actually, and then she brought this to me, and it was a no-brainer. I love Clio, so I was like, this is... I want to work with her in any capacity, and the challenges of this piece were up my street. So that's how I came to it, and then it was different. For
I auditioned really, sent the tape in, and she responded to it, and I went in and read with Ruth a couple of times, and it went from there really. It went from there. Mine was quite a conventional way of doing it.
In terms of casting, when did the leads come into your mind? Were they there at the beginning, or was it a long process?
Sean Bean actually was attached first, and then Ruth, and then we cast Mark. Yeah.
And what was it about them that made you convinced?
Well, I think Sean Bean is a really incredibly subtle actor, and I really loved working with him. And Ruth, I'd seen her in Jane Eyre, and I just thought she was amazing in that, and also in The Affair. I think she's I guess the thing about all three of them is that they're totally committed actors, and they can do subtlety and nuance, and yeah, I mean, that was such a pleasure for me working with the three of them, and the obviously the child, the Esme and Aidan as well. But I mean, so much of it was about working with Ruth and Mark and about their performances and getting those right.
And how was working with Clio?
Amazing.
Yeah, a dream. She's just so, she'll take any suggestion, she'll respect it, she'll often incorporate it. You'll improvise and you'll find your words have made their way into the script, or she slightly tweaks something, or she wants to know whether or not that emotional journey actually is complicit with what she's written and what we think about it. It just felt, well, for me, I know, for me, this was sort of like a first in how significant and how much of an input I was going to have into a project. So for me, it was welcomed with open arms, and she'd be open to any kind of interpretation, any idea that you had, any backstory that you had. I just absolutely loved how big her heart was, and that came through every day.
Yeah, she's a sort of, I've said this a few times, but she's a lover of human beings, and I think that there's something about Clio. She has grace and she has compassion, and it sort of makes everyone in the set and in the cast want to deliver for her. So there's a real community and desire to really tell the truth on this, or to dig into these characters and treat them with the utmost respect. So that comes from her, it emanates from her. So I think all of us were just wanting to work and do everything we could to make it, as good a film as possible.
What was it like the first day you kind of had Ruth and Mark together working? I mean, because obviously you spend a lot of time figuring out who you're going to cast and how they're going to work with the parts, but when they come together, that must be quite something to take in the first time. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, that was brilliant. And I suppose the first time they were in a room together was when we were casting. And then I guess we kind of all sat down together and talked through the scripts. And then they went off and did their... Ruth went and spent a lot of time with this farming couple that I'd got to know when I was writing the script. And Mark went and spent a lot of time with Mr. Gart, who owned the farm where the film was set. So they did a lot of work and preparation kind of separately from me, and then we all came together, and I mean it was phenomenal. I think what they were able to do was communicate an enormous amount between them by saying very little, which enabled me to be able to kind of really strip things back and hone the film.
From speaking to Clio, it sounds like you both put in a lot of research for the roles. Can you talk me through that and kind of what impact that had on the way you played the parts?
I mean, reading it, it's not very verbal, the script. It's all about the physicality of these two characters and where they belong and their relationship with the land. So, and knowing Clive's work, you're like, right, it has to look real. It has to look genuine. There's a lot of work that goes into something that looks genuine, and so I thought, okay, I have to go and work on a farm. I've got to learn all these skills. I've got to know what I'm doing, because on the day I don't want to be looking like I've got no idea. So it was sort of 3 weeks physical labour on a farm and shadowing farmers and castrating lambs and shearing sheep, and then there's all the psychology stuff, which for both of them, they're deeply complex individuals. So I was put in touch with lots of therapists. Actually, we both were, weren't we?
Yeah.
And talked to therapists about sort of PTSD and trauma, what kind of this kind of abuse, the consequences of abuse for people in this situation. So there's a lot of that, lots of research. And the same for you, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Mine was obviously, Ruth was dealing with the trauma side of it, so speaking to therapists about things like that, whereas mine was more like the process of guilt and how you feel towards that and what that can do to someone. So it was slightly different, but they're coming from two different points of view, so massively helpful though, hugely helpful.
It looks like it was quite a tough shoot. Was that fair to say?
Yeah, very tough. 5 weeks to get all that stuff in, and you're dealing with animals and kids and what you shouldn't deal with on a set. And the sheep were stubborn. They were hard. It was hard. You had to do these big set sequences with these sheep, and they're not going to do what you want. So, and lots of landscape. There were guns. There's waterfalls. There was a lot of physical stuff that was difficult. Plus the emotional side and getting to the heart of these scenes and making them work. So, every day was sort of a physical and emotional challenge. But it was only 5 weeks. It was like, right, we can do this. We just got to go for it and get on with it, really.
What was the most challenging day on set?
I think it was the day when we were trying to. There's a scene where Joe wants to sell the flock, and Alice is resisting, and that was an awful lot of sheep that we had to wrangle and get them to try and do what we wanted them to do and go where we needed them to go, and also because Joe's basically trying to get them into the livestock truck, and she's basically trying to get them out. So the sheep were very confused, and at one point I went into the back of the livestock truck where Alice is trying to get the sheep out, and it's quite scary, kind of horrible space to be in, So I kind of understood something of the physical challenge for Ruth and Mark.
How was the rest of the cast to work with? And obviously there are also younger versions of you, which must be... Is that first, or is that something that's happened to you before? I'm not sure. But,
I've had a younger version of me in Jane Eyre, and this was, I think, the second time, yeah. And it was interesting because those scenes, they've come out in the edit, really, but there was a lot more of them, and they were sort of experimental. We were trying to work out, all of us were in one scene at one point, and it was choreography, really, how you get people around a room and how these intrusive memories visualised. So we were sort of working them out on the day, actually. But they were lovely. They were sort of copying us and watching us and then trying to get some of our mannerisms. And they, create a real impression on the screen. It's great.
Yeah.
Must be odd, though.
It is odd, yeah, it is. I actually helped audition Aidan, who plays the younger version of me, and had a sort of say in it, because he did come in and there was a sort of, although he towers me by about half a foot, I did think there's a likeness there. There's a strange laddish energy that I think it was nice, because then you've got another ingredient that you can say, well, what's he got that Joe has now lost or Alice has now lost. You know, that vibrance,
that
that bit of
innocence.
control, that innocence, yeah. And it's another, you know,
Layer to the...
layer to draw upon, yeah.
How's it ever gonna work? You're scared? I'm solid!